Okay, this is the second to last mission where we get to do things on foot, and it is a sewer mission. I suppose sewers were kind of inevitable, but I don't really recall sewers being that much of a thing in GoldenEye. Perfect Dark or World Is Not Enough. Maybe I'm not remembering them well enough? Anyway, we're getting another tech scroll, hopefully the last one of the game. That said, Caesar definitely had a terrible idea when he decided to piss off the Empire and Rebellion at the same time. It takes a very delicate hand to play both sides of a conflict, and Caesar just doesn't have a hand like that. Seeing those two ships side by side like that just makes me feel all the more annoyed with it. Honestly, it's a bit of an interesting bit that we don't have to actually rescue Princess Leia in this game. Most games would do that just because most people like to be the person who gets the damsel out of a rough situation. But this game is self-aware enough to know that there's no way the game engine could handle a character who isn't a hostile for us to deal with. So we're just gonna run in, kill anyone in our path, and set the bombs for a dramatic explosion I'm sure we won't really get to see. The 8th and 9th mission will get a jetpack right from the start of it, so there's going to be a lot of three-dimensional navigation going on around here. Excuse me for not being enthusiastic about that. Okay, good that I remembered those two floating droids in the air, but just because I remember them doesn't mean they're not gonna be an issue, though. They may not have done all that much damage, but part of me was kinda hoping I could get by them clean. I suppose I was asking for too much. Okay, so the Black Sun Syndicate has some red-armored soldiers for some reason, and they've got them patrolling around in the sewers. I suppose Caesar is genre-savvy enough to know that sewers are kind of a popular entry point for plucky heroes, or at least they were back when this game was released. I'm not entirely sure when it was, but it feels like as graphics improved, game designers were less likely to pull out sewer levels. At least outside of horror games, where the player is generally put into dark, claustrophobic environments to make them a bit more nervous about what's beyond the next corner. Definitely feels like I'm taking way too many hits for me to feel all that comfortable. Should I even ask what that machine is supposed to do around here, aside from make the player feel a little nervous, that is? Because the turrets, droids, and random troopers patrolling around here are more than enough to make me feel nervous, along with the jetpack on our back. You've got to be kidding me. How the hell were we supposed to avoid getting shot by that bastard? Seriously, that guy started pulling the trigger before he even saw us. I feel like this game is a bit inconsistent with how fast the enemy is with their reaction speeds. Okay, we've got to worry about those tentacle things in the water. It's certainly been quite a while since we've had to worry about a Dianoga. The last time we ran into them was back in Star Wars Dark Forces. I'm honestly surprised that we don't see more of those things, considering sewer missions were pretty common in gaming. At least until around the PS3, Xbox 360 console generation and onwards. I suppose those would be awkward to pull off in any games with lightsabers, and it'd be even more insane to throw them into games where the player is piloting a vehicle of some kind. Anyway, we don't have any swimming ability whatsoever around here, and this is a mission with a hell of a lot of dirty water for us to get submerged into. So the main use of the jetpack is us essentially skipping over the idea of swimming, using the already established method of three-dimensional movement in the game to get things done. It's an interesting choice, and to be fair, I generally am not a fan of a lot of swimming mechanics in a lot of games. Most games where you have to swim around a lot underwater, things can get pretty damn annoying as you hope to avoid asphyxiating as you do everything you need to down there, and you generally aren't really able to fight back down there. I certainly don't need to worry about Dash suffocating since it's so easy and fast to jet upwards and back to breathable air. The annoying part is going back down. Well, I certainly appreciate the fact that we're regaining our health before the next bit of damage. Not sure if that's because I'm more cautious at this point in the mission than the start, or if I'm just a little bit luckier. Well, I suppose it's nice to see the main room, or maybe chamber is a better word for it. It's not too often that this game makes maps where things circle around, but I always appreciate when that happens. Especially since a lot of games these days will just make a long hallway with no reason for the player to have to head backwards at all, even momentarily. And sometimes you just sit back and go, good God, I miss older gaming. Really? One shot and we lost 19 health? Sure, I'm not really surprised that the guy with the rifle in his hands does more damage than a small floating droid in a single shot, but still, I wasn't expecting to take quite that much damage from it. Well, we certainly went from 100 down to 34 in a hurry. I'm not sure how much of that has to do with the fact that this game is just not that good at letting us look up and down, and how much has to do with the fact that this map is very much designed with a lot of jetting up and down in mind. Huh. Considering how large this room is, I was expecting more from it. Seriously, this is a lot of empty space for just one basic soldier and a key on the other end of the room. But then this was probably one of the least claustrophobic sewers I can think of in gaming. Regardless of how much room we have to maneuver, it doesn't change the fact that the control scheme doesn't make it all that convenient and snappy to do what we need to do in order to get from point to point, especially if we're busy shooting at someone else at the time. Anyway, sorry for not taking the shortcut back to the main chamber just yet. Now that we've got the key, I'd like to see if we can get our health a little higher before we go to the next part of the sewers. Granted, 56 isn't all that great, but take what you can get, especially when you got no clue what's coming next. I'm pretty sure that's the only door that needed a key in here. Hell, this is the only key we've needed for the entire game so far. So that little key icon on the left of the screen is just a little bit more distracting than it was probably meant to be. Well, I've got to admit, I've never seen water look anywhere near this murky before in a game. Sure, it's sewer water, it's supposed to be disgusting, but I wasn't expecting the draw distance to shrink this much. Come on, how was I supposed to know we're supposed to avoid that? And we aren't even in the same room we died in when we respawn, so there's a chance we're gonna get killed by the exact same bullshit, since it's not like it's convenient to be able to look up in this game to see if we're gonna run into that thing. Okay, unscathed by the odd swinging thing this time, and we avoided getting shot too, so we got pretty lucky there. Oh dear. This chamber is certainly going to be annoying to go through. Kind of wish there was a way to jet downwards instead of waiting for gravity to do its thing, but Good God, trying to hit the switch while we're flying around. Yeesh. Who the hell thought this sort of thing was a good idea with this control scheme? It just feels like something that highlights how rough the controller is trying to deal with this. And this game has more than enough issues that highlight the fact that the controller was not designed for this kind of crap just yet. Anyway, we seem to have gained another key-like object, so that's going to clutter the left side of our screen a bit more. Funny, I was expecting some droids to be floating around in there. Is it just me, or is a lot of the damage we're taking in this mission just absolutely cheap bullshit? And I can't even say that this mission is well and truly getting on my nerves, even with all that, because even at its worst, it's undoubtedly better than the swoop chase mission. We've already gotten through the worst that this game has to offer us, and while I never really look forward to the 8th or 9th missions in this game, they do not feel fundamentally broken. I'm sure if it wasn't for my issues with looking up and down around here, these two jetpack-heavy missions wouldn't be such a pain in the ass for me. Kinda surprised neither of those guys managed to get a shot off at us. Okay, apparently we need to turn on a second fan before we're allowed to move on. Certainly some strange roadblocks in this mission, and they're never going to be repeated. Again, one of the things that helps this game to stand out is just how many unique things they throw into it. Sure, there are games on this console era that do the same things better, but those other games specialized. This game was a jack of all trades, and it wasn't until Halo Combat Evolved that a game would have so many different mechanics all in the same package. Granted, that's probably a bit of a stretch. Star Wars Shadows of the Empire has very little to make it similar to Combat Evolved. Still, Halo was in the absolute next console generation. While I'm not going to say anything about what is and isn't a gaming golden era in terms of consoles, there's no getting around the fact that the 5th, 6th, and 7th generations of consoles felt more alive than the 8th or 9th generations. There may be some good games released here and there on the more modern ones, but we've certainly had a slump in terms of single-player experiences. Anyway, we've made it to our boss fight, which is an oversized Dianoga, and again, the most annoying part of it is the fact that we need to look up and down quite a bit. We've got to occasionally go up for the sake of breathing, which is going to break things up a bit. The tentacles keep respawning, so yeah, disarming them isn't gonna do much. And we have to shoot specifically at the monster's eye to kill it. The eye is not all that eye-grabbing, especially compared to other video game weaknesses in this console era. Again, the boss fights in this game aren't especially good no matter how I look at them. Bloody hell. The biggest danger in this fight is the player getting impatient trying to take this thing down. The more impatient you get, the sloppier you get, and the more likely you're gonna take hits that you definitely don't need to. Yeah, this isn't all that great to look at by any means, and it's not exactly the sort of action that really puts you on the edge of your seat when you've got the controller in your hands. So close to finishing this farce of a fight. But considering we died trying, I suppose I can't really say there's no challenge at all, just it's not the kind of challenge you can really feel excited for. And that does it. The boss is done. Just need to wait for the mission to acknowledge that, and then we can move on to the second to last mission of the game, which is the last mission we'll ever be running around in. I kind of feel a pit in Parasite got killed twice in this mission, but hey, we've still got plenty of lives, no need to feel worried. Not unless I screw things up quite a bit next time. Should I bother asking why the water has to drain by so damn much before the thing on the ceiling opens up? Hell, there isn't even an in-universe logic to the plug opening up, since this chamber is purely meant to be an oversized monster, and, Sizor definitely didn't want people wandering into his headquarters from this angle. At most, maybe he might drop some, people he didn't like down here to have them eaten.